So this is from Risa. My K-1 petition was approved 3 months ago. How can I get my visa appointment letter? Well, congratulations. By the way, the K-1 is a fiancé visa. So we're talking to somebody who's anticipating a big moment in his or her life, about to go to the States to join up with his or her loved one and get married and live happily ever after on a lifelong honeymoon in whatever city they choose to reside in. But how long do they have to wait? Well, it's been 3 months since the petition was approved. I'd say it's likely you're going to get summoned within another 3 months, but that's a guess because the paperwork sometimes takes some time to reach us. The petition is approved by the U.S. Immigration Service, that's USCIS, in the United States. That's the only place where those petitions can be approved. The petitioner sends in the form saying, I am in love with Shamsi down in the Philippines. I want to marry her, and this is why I believe that I can do this legitimately under the law. She's not married. I'm not married. She's of legal age. I'm of legal age. I have some income. She and I have corresponded for a long time, and I've met her on any number of occasions when I visited the Philippines. I want her to be my bride. The authorities review that. They say that all makes sense, and here are some nice pictures of the couple together. Petition approved. And then they send the petition to us. And that's sometimes a slow process because they have to send it through immigration channels that include any number of stops. Once we get it, the person is summoned very quickly. There is not a long wait time once we get the documents, but chances are we don't have yours right now. If you wanted to send an email to our immigrant visa section to find out if your petition is here, you could do that, but the fact is we are likely to be notifying you as soon as we get your case. So if you're anxious, 3 months, you should not be anxious. That's not an unusual wait time. But if you've been waiting, if you're a fiance, for example, and you've been waiting for a year, then you might ask us, have you seen our petition? Has it been misplaced? And that, again, is at ivmanila.replies@state.gov. Some of you sometimes ask about customer service in the consular section, what you should expect, what sort of treatment you'll receive, how will you be greeted, how will you be assisted, how will you be talked to. I want very much to assure you that customer service is our highest goal, good customer service. I strongly believe as the Consul General, and I espouse this to all of the interviewers and all of the local nationals, even the Guard Force, every encounter with a representative of the U.S. Embassy is a diplomatic encounter, and it's in the interest of diplomacy that those encounters be successful because we want very much to promote the bilateral relationship. So we want you to be comfortable, we want you to be confident. When you come into the section, you will not sacrifice a shred of your dignity. If something untoward happens, I do want to know about it, and I'd welcome your input at our Facebook page or through the email addresses I've suggested. We very much want to be sure that your experience is a comfortable one at our embassy, and I'm confident that it will be. It may be that you don't qualify for a visa, but that does not mean you should suffer any bruises to your dignity. You should be treated courteously. You will be courteously. You will be treated courteously. You will be treated professionally. We have a very good staff, Filipino and American alike, and we look forward to greeting you, getting to know you better, and hopefully helping you to qualify for a visa to visit the United States. I remind you that we have a blog, The Satisfied Voyager, at blogs.usembassy.gov/Philippines. I encourage you to take a look at that at your convenience. Appreciate its commentary, see the articles we think you'd find interesting, and contribute if you see something that generates a response from you. I have a new tweet from Visual Treats. Our guidelines for strong economic ties stricter for persons in the health services industry. They are the same for every industry, but there's a perception that certain industries are disfavored at the interview process because of reputations surrounding the ambitions of those individuals. And I must acknowledge, health services workers sometimes feel they're not given a fair shake at the window because historically, Philippine nationals have demonstrated excellent skills in therapy, in nursing, in home care. Therefore, they are very marketable as workers in the United States. And there are lots of places in the United States that would, in fact, employ people, quote, off the books. So it is possible that someone in that industry who wanted to could integrate into the underground economy in the United States with very little effort in the search department. So when that person comes before us at the window, we will look closely at the ties connecting him or her back to the Philippines. And those ties would include, as with anyone, personal and professional links. But are they stronger, necessarily, for someone in the health services industry than in some other? No, they're not. They have to demonstrate the same ties, personal and professional, to bring them back. The fact that they have a marketable trade doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be reviewed more strictly. It simply means that they're going to have to show us that they're using their trade here and would not be tempted to use it in the United States. So have that in mind. If you're trained in the health services industry, we welcome your application, but you'd certainly have a better chance of qualifying for a visa if you were able to demonstrate that you're already working in the health service industry rather than sort of looking for an opportunity therein. Because even though you might go to the States with no intention other than to visit Disneyland, it may be that you're tempted very quickly by someone who wants to offer you a job. And if you don't have a job already in the Philippines, it's possible that you'll be tempted to take one even for a month or two or a short period of time. I have to remind anyone, working in the States violates a visitor's visa, even if it's for a day, even if it's for an hour. If you're working for pay in the United States, you are violating the terms of your visa. And the officer, of course, might be suspicious of someone not working who has a health services background and claims to be going simply for tourism. Here's a question that looks like it might fall under the purview of my colleagues in Homeland Services, but let me read it. My permanent resident card, most people call that a green card, expired in 2001. I have not returned to the United States since 1994. I'm now planning to re-enter the United States. Am I still qualified? Well, let me try to put this together. Again, I don't work for Homeland Security. They are the people who control the borders. They're the guys who wear a badge here and a gun here, and they ask you questions to determine if you can cross the line into the United States. So if I were traveling with a document that had expired in 2001, and I had not entered the United States since 1994, even though that document suggested that I lived there, I'd probably be a bit apprehensive about boarding the plane. My guess is you are no longer qualified to enter the United States because you ceased to reside there, thereby voiding the card that's in your custody, which expired more than 10 years ago. So this is a guess because I don't work for Homeland Security, but I think it's a pretty educated guess. You would have a difficult time even boarding the aircraft. What I would suggest to you, and you're not obliged to take this suggestion, you're perfectly free to consult our Homeland Security colleagues here at the embassy. You can send an email to the NIV mailbox, and we will try to route your question to the Homeland Security officer. The NIV mailbox, again, is Cons Manila, C-O-N-S Manila, NIV, non-immigrant visa, at state.gov, and you could ask. You could state the question exactly as you stated it to me. But I should say, my own guess is you would be better off considering that status as lost and soliciting a B1, B2 visa that would allow you to visit the States rather than be considered a resident, because it appears that your residence is here. Okay, so there are two prongs there. One, consult our DHS colleagues. Two, give it up and come in and apply for a B1, B2, because most likely you're no longer qualified to travel as a green card holder. I have a last question. Time flies. Has it really been an hour of tweets? The last question comes from Gladys. Gladys, we saved the last question for you. Does having a U.S. citizen boyfriend affect me having a visa? So if I have this correctly, you have a visa and you have a U.S. citizen boyfriend. Now, if having the visa, or excuse me, if having the boyfriend compromises your visa, the question, Gladys, is which one means more to you? Now that would be something that we'd talk about on Valentine's Day with more profundity. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm not an advice columnist. I can tell you this. Your visa is intact if you have it now, whether you have a U.S. citizen boyfriend or a boyfriend from some other nation. You qualified for the visa because you are able to demonstrate strong ties to this country. If you now have ties to some other country, we will not be taking a visa away from you, but the next time you travel to the United States, you may be asked some questions about where you reside, where your ties are, and the fact that you have a U.S. citizen boyfriend should not compromise your eligibility unless you plan to reside in the United States with that U.S. citizen boyfriend. My guess, though, is that that boyfriend lives here, and the two of you are happily enjoying each other's company here, and perhaps one time or another you might travel together to the United States, where I hope you two spend lots of money and, again, keep our economic revival going and enjoy yourself at the same time. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/manila.usembassy, or simply type in U.S. Embassy Manila Facebook and up it'll come. I have certainly tried to answer all the questions, and I remind you to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com U.S. Embassy Manila /U.S. Embassy Manila. If I didn't have time to answer all the questions, I apologize. An hour, as I said, goes awfully quickly. That means in another hour, if it goes by just as quickly, I'll be able to go home and start the celebrations for the Chinese New Year. Happy Chinese New Year to all our viewers and listeners. I hope you too enjoyed the 3-day weekend. I hope you spend at least part of that time following us on Twitter and Facebook and enjoying our Be Satisfied Voyager blog. And I'm going to spare you the suffering that I would render if I joined my colleagues Jay and Cynthia in karaoke at this time. I will say, though, that we hope to repeat this broadcast in no more than a month, maybe even sooner, depending on reactions from the public. The Visa Hour will be a regular feature of the U.S. Embassy webcam network. It's been my pleasure to address you today. Maraming salamat, and thank you very much. Hanggang next month. Maybe I'll learn how to say that in Tagalog next time. Thank you very much.